Welcome to the Superabound podcast, where vision-led entrepreneurs learn to build a generous business without sacrificing what matters most. You are listening to episode 358, What to Do When Your Business is in Flux. Is that what we're calling this?
Oh yeah. No, it's about
Yeah.
the changing
I had
times.
one of those moments where I was like, wait, what are we talking about?
That was it.
What's
When your
the episode
business is in
title?
flux.
Please tell me
We are
how not to
here.
freak out.
How not to freak out. Speaking of change, we have a new background for today. If you're watching the video, we have a lovely tree behind us that is actually it's one of our final days with the tree. We're going to be saying goodbye to it. So this is just a little flux in our life here at home. And yeah, let's talk about flux in business too.
Yeah, I'm sad about the tree.
It's a bummer.
It's sick. We're not just cutting it down for fun, but I'm excited about some of the changes we'll tell you about later,
There are
another
changes.
time,
Yeah.
what's going to be happening with our two trees back there. But it's a little moment with the tree. I'm trying to spend as much time outside as I can right now, even though my allergies are very bad. So if it sounds like I have a cold, that is why. It's just been bad because flux and seasons, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's why we're talking about this. Our business has had a lot of fluctuations in the last year or two. Um, and I've noticed in the last couple of years, this is also true for many of my clients. I have clients in a wide variety of industries, and I think that the last couple of years have been maybe harder on some industries more than others. Um, and we talk about business being a spiritual practice. We talk about, really having a healthy mindset, having a mindset that's tuned towards abundance and prosperity. But that is something that's easy to do when things feel spacious and feel wonderful. It's very hard to do when you look at your business revenue for the last quarter and say, oh shit, something's wrong, something's not working, something's bad. It's hard to be like in a positive, flowing, manifesty mindset when the numbers are feeling scary for you
Yeah. Mm.
or the team or like all the stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever's going on for you. I want to touch on the idea of business as a spiritual practice. Spiritual practices are not always like good feeling things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're really hard. Sometimes they're about confronting things that you've wanted to avoid your whole life. Sometimes they're about breaking through your own resistance to your higher possibilities that you've held on to for whatever reason. Sometimes it's really tough. And so, in those moments when you're like, why is my business feeling so heavy? Why is this so hard? I thought it's supposed to be a spiritual practice, as
Mm-hmm.
those spiritual practices are just, lighting incense and taking bubble baths. You can, harken back to some of the more challenging practices that we have in our, you know, records as a species, as a culture. Um, Sometimes it's tough.
Yeah. Sometimes it's tough. And I mean, I don't think anyone becomes an entrepreneur, or maybe if you're not an entrepreneur, maybe you're in a leadership role. I don't think any of us really start doing that um, because we believe it's going to be easy. In some ways, sorry, I shouldn't say that. In some ways, it is easier. If you hate working for someone else, if you don't like taking direction, you don't like having a boss, if you feel like the businesses that you have worked for are not actually walking the talk. In some ways, it's easier to be out on your own or to be the leader in a business situation because you and your integrity can do the work that feels aligned for you. So, in some ways, it is kind of spiritually easier,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's harder because you're the one responsible. You're the one responsible for doing the work. If you work for an organization that does not um, actually stand in their values, at the end of the day, you can go home and say, well, they're out of integrity and I'm just doing this for a paycheck and, I'm going to find something that's better for me. But when you are the person signing the paychecks and maybe people on your team are not living up to the values of the company that you've all agreed on, or they're not doing their work in a way that has integrity, or you are partnering or collaborating with people who are saying one thing and doing another, you're the backstop. You're the person that has to say, no, this is not okay. When something you've poured your heart and soul and energy and revenue into as an experiment in your business does not work, it does not go according to plan, you are the one that has to troubleshoot that while you simultaneously deal with maybe the internal disappointment of something not going the way you wanted it to. So, in that way, it's much harder than just having a job where someone else makes the rules and calls the shots.
Yeah, it's when you're the leader, when you're the boss, it's more vision aligned, hopefully. That's why you're doing it. And that's what gives you the strength to deal with those deeper levels of challenge, right? There's a higher high and a lower low, but that together is what makes it more real, makes it more engaging, makes it more worthwhile, worthy of your life energy. So that's kind of the uh, comfort that you can take when things are really challenging, when things are in flux, is, as our eldest Ray likes to say, you chose this. When we're in the middle of something really tough, like, you chose this. Okay, yes, I did choose this.
Yeah,
And coming back to
that's
that
their harsh
reason,
coaching.
yeah, coming back to that reason why you chose it. That's your vision aligned engine. That's the heat for your fire.
So let's talk about what happens when you are in a period of fluctuation. And, I'll give some examples, maybe a product or program that had been very stable, that had been bringing in a consistent um, revenue, consistent customers, just had some feeling of solidity to it, starts to tank. Or when maybe team members that have been with you from the beginning start to falter. They are not able to live up to the new version of the business. They can't see the new vision. They are taking 3 times longer to do something than is really necessary. Um, your business at that point is in flux when we start to either have external factors that are making things harder internally, or when we have internal factors that are making things challenging externally, because we think about whole life success, but I think that business success is also very holistic. If there's trouble on the team, your customers are going to see that in some ripple effect. If the market's not buying the way they used to, that's going to shake the confidence of the core team. So we can't just say, even though we're coaches, we can't just say the cure for this is to think positively and think differently. Um, this really bugs me when coaches say you're not wanting it hard enough or you're not believing in yourself hard enough. I did a podcast recently with Elena, my other podcast partner, for the coaching mixer. And we were really talking about how sometimes people will sacrifice their own well-being to achieve a goal. And I think that that's not actually a good use of our mindset.
And at the same time, when things are tricky, you got to be dialed into the right perspective on it. Even if you're the only one working on the business, which is probably not the case if you're, leading a team, leading a company, you gotta point people towards that North Star that's going to help everybody get through this challenging period. Because if you're feeling the shakiness of, bad results, a team member that's not pulling their weight, whatever it might be, you better believe everybody else is feeling it too.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have the same skin in the game that you do to kind of keep them on board. Mm-hmm. And so if you aren't kind of showing them that there is a positive path forward. Because there's only two options. Either there is a positive path forward and you should go for it and take it with everything you've got, or there's not a positive path forward and you either need to create one or it's time to wind things down. Right. So it's like, if there is a positive path forward, that's what you need to focus on for yourself and for your team. And if there isn't, then that's where you start doing the problem solving of how do we turn this around? How do we turn this into something that we can be proud of and kind of look back on as a real success?
Okay. And what I want to know about that, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is how do you galvanize people around the positive path forward or get them on board with like creating the positive path forward without sugarcoating the seriousness of the situation you're in? Because I've seen a lot of business owners really kind of shelter their team or even like, I'm sorry to say, like straight up lie in their industry and say everything is great and I'm doing
Yeah.
wonderful and I'm super successful, um, when it's like actually not the case. So, and I know that that's probably self protection and that's maybe I don't know, that's marketing or something. Um, but how do you actually be honest enough with what is happening with the changes that are like basically how do you be available for those changes and articulate that in a way that's still creative and motivating, but not like bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, what I've so the phrase that comes to mind is the reality distortion effect.
Mm.
It's, attributed to Steve Jobs and his ability to like have people be present to a reality that was nowhere to be found, like it just exists in potential. It was his ability to tell a story that brings that story so resonantly to the present moment that it gets lots of people on board for what's possible. And it's something that is a trait of successful leaders, throughout, is you can be in the middle of hell. You could be failing on all fronts. But if there is still a vision for what's possible that you can see so strongly that despite all the chaos and tumult around you, you can motivate yourself and your people to say, this is where we're going, and this is why it matters, and this is why you should stay on this path with me, then you have a shot.
And that's, I mean, that's very interesting. I think also these fluctuation times, I think, as a spiritual opportunity, are it's like a chance to actually redefine or check in with what your big vision is.
Mm-hmm.
Not the corporate mission statement, but the actual thing you want to create with your lifetime. We were talking about this on a walk the other day. Like, what do you want people to say about you 20 years after you're dead? Not like the nice things people say about you at your funeral. We're going down that road right now, everybody. I love to talk about that
Death
because
is
it's
the other side of life.
happening to all of us, coming soon. Coming soon. But like that 20 years, 30 years, 100 years, there are people who have such a legacy that their story, their vision still touches people today. And I think in times of flux, of course, you're going to be worrying about the immediate lantern you must light to keep your business going or to keep your team on board. But I think it's also a chance to cast yourself into a future where you're not here and you're not able to have such a present influence on the world around you. What did you do with this lifetime? What did you do that made a difference to other people? And I have to say, I feel very lucky to work with the clients that I have because they are people who are doing work in the world that will be felt for hundreds of years, like not exaggerating at all. They're having an impact now, but the work that they're doing will have a ripple result long after they are alive. So I think it's helpful to connect with that, like kind of bigger stretch of time, even beyond your own lifetime, when you're in flux, to remind you that this is what matters. And this has helped us so many times.
Yeah. Because it puts everything in perspective. It reminds you that this may be a challenge in this moment for whatever is going on, but it's part of a bigger story of your own life, which is part of a bigger story of the world around you, and can help you really anchor in what matters and why you became an entrepreneur or a leader in the first place to make that difference. And, when you think about the people that have inspired you and those moments when they've been really galvanizing or motivating, it's because they're tapped into something deeper, something truer than this moment, this everyday, hit the next mark, make the next dollar. It's actually, here's why we're doing this. Here's why we're doing this together. Here's why I need you, and why you may have resonated and said, yes, I want to work with you. And so that relationship, that bond, right, coming back to what you know to be true between yourself and your team, the relationships that are there between you and your team and your customers, all of that can transcend the momentary challenges and bring you back to those, it's called first principles that you often hear, like bring you back to those reasons why you're even doing it.
Okay. And so that's kind of the big picture, which I think is really important. I think it's the first place to start with. But then maybe you could speak a little bit from your own experience about how you've dealt with flux in the last little while. What have been some of the mindset tools? What have been some of the practices that have been just supportive in times of uncertainty?
Yeah. For me, what's been most helpful is a balance of knowing what I want and not knowing exactly how we're going to get there. And it's helpful to be surrounded by people who will help you like be loose around the how we're going to get there part. Because for me, my mind tends to go like, all right, here's how we're going to do it. Like I like to collapse the uncertainty into, all right, here's the path forward. And that can be helpful. You start taking action and start learning from those actions, but it can also be unhelpful because you can cut out good options that may still be on the table. That's one thing I always find helpful about talking things over with my wife, bringing them up with you, Aaron, is, I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. Why do I need to talk about it? Because maybe there are some other options. Maybe there's some other possibilities for getting this very same thing that you want that are actually even better than the path that you thought. So for me, that's been really helpful, whether it's around personnel issues or product issues, revenue issues. You're like, hey, here's where we want to go. Let's talk about the possibilities and which ones are going to be best for all possible outcomes, for best for all the people involved.
Yeah. I didn't know you were trying to talk to me as your partner on that because I'm usually like put on my thinking partner cap, which is what I do with my clients. Um, so many people, I think, waste so much time and effort just rolling things around in their own head. I think that just from what I've seen over the years, when I was coaching on relationships, when I've been coaching on business challenges with business owners, I I try to stay flexible around this, but I really have the tendency to believe that more communication is better because sometimes we will take a problem, like you said, this about yourself. You happen to be a coach, you happen to have all these mindset tools. You know that your tendency is to collapse things down, to remove uncertainty so you have a path forward, so you can get going and just be like, this is what we're doing. It's a very Taurus energy. It's very Steve, which has its benefits and drawbacks. But if before you kind of said, okay, I'm going to take action towards this thing, you did open it up to a big brainstorm. You had some flexibility. You had someone come in and offer ideas that maybe hadn't occurred to you, which is me usually, sometimes. um, you just have more. You have another brain on the problem. You have another brain. And I think this is what is so important for business owners, for leaders, is you're very emotionally tied in when it's your business or your team or your problem to solve. The weight of that responsibility is not something that I think anyone can be free from. I don't think it's possible for you to know that you're responsible and not feel some pressure. um, or to be like really clean around your thinking. You need a thinking partner. You need a coach. You need someone to come in who is not emotionally invested, who is not going to be responsible for doing the heavy lifting of whatever that work entails to support you around the thinking. Someone who's on your team as that kind of support um, offers you, I think, again, a more holistic way of looking at potential solutions. Because if the solution is, I know what I'm going to do, I'm going to work 60 hours a week until this problem is solved. Someone who has your whole life success on their mind is going to really open that up and say, really, is that the only option? Is that actually supportive to you in the long run? Is that something that is going to be sustainable? They're going to offer possibilities for you. They're going to offer maybe arguments for why that could not, maybe that's not the path forward. I've had so many people who only got mentorship from other people in their industry, and they're all coming at it with the same exact mindset blocks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have a group of like tech founders in a room supporting each other, they're all going to believe that the fastest way to make $5 million is to work 80 hours a week because that's what everybody did. And that must be the only way. That's what the story they heard on the podcast. That's what Steve Jobs did, or like whoever, like the people did. Um, they need sometimes someone with a totally different mindset, a totally different um, way of thinking to come in and say, what if there's another way? I've been doing this for a while with people who have big jobs, big businesses. They can't all work 4 days a week. Some of them have to work more than that. But I will tell you, I have watched some of the very busiest clients that I've ever had take sabbaticals, revisit their schedules so that they're not, you know, doing high demand work every single day. I have watched people who once told me that they could never have the kind of spaciousness, they could never work without immense pressure. I have watched them completely shift that perspective through their own experimentation and probably just from as a side effect of having someone in their corner that said, let's find out if we can make some magical other option that has never existed for people in your position ever before. And it's fun.
Yeah. So having space for impossible possibilities, for things that you hadn't considered, is crucial for these moments of flux. And so if you're kind of thinking it through on your own, consider, what are all the things that I want to benefit.
Don't think it through on your own. I'm saying don't do
that. But no, that's the whole point. Like, start with your own thinking and then find a good coach to expand it from there.
Yeah. Just assume that your own thinking is going to be limited because our thinking is limited.
Yeah. You can't possibly have all the stakeholders in mind just from where you're sitting.
Yeah.
And so partnering up and if there's to the point of like, if you're all sitting in the same room and you've always already been in the same room, the thinking is probably going to be along the same lines of what's always been there. So the thinking that got you here is not going to be the thinking that gets you out. So definitely that expansive, almost magical, but like in the kind of grounded possibility towards creating your own future sense is the best possible thing you can do. I
agree. And it's funny because I do this with you. So Steve is not the only one who asks the other person for thinking partnership. I do this with Steve, and my own coaches. But when you are left to your own devices, you are just going to go to your default. And the quickest way to get out of that default into possibility is actually, and I didn't say this for a long time because I wanted to be taken seriously, like a serious business coach with my shoulder pads. It actually is to dive into more magical thinking. It actually is to get more playful and creative with the way that you are doing something. I'm going to even offer just like a small example because some of you know that I've been working for the last little while on this superabound Oracle deck. If you
It's
don't,
really cool.
it's
It's
cool.
beautiful.
It's super cool. I've posted lots of time lapse videos on Instagram at Be Superabound if you want to see me like sitting there frowning at the paper
Making the
and
magic.
figuring it
Yeah.
out. It's super fun, or smiling at the paper. I actually smile more than frown these days. But my, it sounds very whimsical, really different. And of course, because I have been in the realm of divination for a long time, my biggest kind of worry the last little while has been like, how am I going to make one of those little guidebooks? You know, those little teeny books, you can barely read the font. They tell you what the cards are for. I've been really grappling with like, how am I going to design that? How am I going to create that? What goes in that? Because the way that I've been teaching, especially Oracle cards, to my clients is to let their intuition be the guide, to use it as a catalyst for tapping into your own inner knowing, to connecting with your future, to getting your own answers. And the last thing I want to do is say, here's the definitive meaning of this card.
Black and white, baby.
This is what this one means, definitely. And if you see something else, that's just wrong. I don't want to do that. And those little guidebooks sometimes are just so easy for people to flip open and say, I'm going to go find out exactly what this means. So, in my own limited thinking about it, I don't say that with self judgment. I just mean I've seen hundreds of tarot decks, hundreds of oracle decks. They all have this little card book lit thing. I was like, I don't want to do that, Steve. And Steve said, well, you don't have to do that. Maybe there's another way that you could offer some ideas to people. You can offer them coaching. You can offer them, your impressions of the card as you were creating it. You can like give meanings, but not make it something that feels rigid or they are not tapping in to their own inner knowing. And so we have a really neat idea for how we're going to do this for when I release the deck. And it's something I don't think I've ever seen another deck creator do. They probably have, but I just haven't seen it. Um, and I'm really excited about it. And it's going to be something that helps you tap into your intuition to use the cards, but then we'll support you with, some of the meanings I saw as I was creating the card.
So if there's any takeaway from this, I would say it's connect with your big vision, anchor in why you're doing what you're doing, get that thinking partnership to expand the possible paths forward, and use those two to galvanize yourself and the people around you to pursue the journey in this moment of flux.
I hope that this is helpful. And we're always going to have flux. So it's something that this is a skill you're going to need. You're going to need a way of being in these uncertain seasons of your business, of your life. And the more you can sort of do the dance between the big visionary thinking and the, hey, I need some support today. I need another brain that's not as emotionally tied up in this situation as me to help me reflect, to get coaching from, to get ideas from. It's a really, really beautiful gift to give yourself. Because I mean, we all think we're the lone wolf. We have to figure it out alone. But like, that's not better. That's not faster. That's actually often a big waste of time in my personal experience for myself. When I do that, it often wastes months of time that I just wish I had sat down with my coach and talked it through.
Well, thank you for listening. We'll be in touch next time. If you want to see what it would look like in your business to have that kind of thinking partnership, you can head to besuperabound.com/consultation and
book a start session.
Book a start session there, Anna. Take care.
Take care.